Hi everyone, Darren Hunter here, and I'm with Michael Sands from Teams by Design. This is the Outsourced PM Podcast Show, and wow, Michael, we've just got an amazing library of episodes we've already covered. Last show we talked about how you achieved in a 2-year period with 650 properties in Melbourne, 0 vacancy, and of course you would never been able to achieve that without using virtual assistants. Congratulations.
Yeah, it was definitely something that we had to kind of move towards. There was issues with staffing shortages in Victoria. There was all these factors that were giving me an excuse, and I don't like having excuses. Being a business owner means that you can make crazy decisions and try and implement new things. And I couldn't do most of the things I do now without a team of virtual assistants. It's not because they're in the Philippines, it's because genuinely they're lovely, amazing people that we legitimately want to work with. So much so that we go over and we do events supporting their growth and education. Doing REVA, the real estate virtual assistant course that we did just before COVID hit, and the ones we're looking to do more this year. Just on that, so people know what REVA is, we actually go to the Philippines, run events for virtual assistants to attend so they can see what it's like working with real estate agents in Australia and New Zealand. And we do that so that we can also find the very best people. It brings them out of their shell. We see how human they are. And, because who you work with matters.
And don't forget, Michael, it's the UK as well, right? So it's 3 countries that Teams by Design is servicing very heavily. And, which is fantastic. And so just go back, have a look at our catalog that we've got so far. We've got how, Michael, you ran a team of 1.5 staff for 650 properties with 80% of the work getting done by virtual assistants. Now, you want to get a list on those 30 different property management tasks that can be easily outsourced to virtual assistants, which means they don't have to be done by team members with boots on the ground. Just go to teamsbydesign.tasks.com. That's teamsbydesign.tasks.com to get that 30 list. And today, Michael, we're talking about the actual Teams by Design recruitment process, which is very specific to property management. It is different from all the other virtual assistant companies out there that recruit for any industry. We're focused on real estate. We're focused on property management. So I've got 10 or actually 11 different things that Teams by Design does to put people through a recruitment process. So we end up with a fantastic virtual assistant working with property management offices in Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. So firstly, starting off, Michael, when it comes to the recruitment process, we've got to go to step number 1, where the job ad goes up. Now, Michael, you've got a lot of years working in and with the Philippines. So with all the knowledge and the amazing experience that you have with virtual assistants, and where does a job ad go up, and to where, and how many people does it get exposed to typically?
Well, I mean, Darren, do people want to see and want to hear about how rigid our process is? I mean, it'd be quite difficult for people to try, and this makes it sound like it'd be difficult to employ a virtual assistant, right, when you break things down. But I guess we should let everybody know the process that is involved when we do go to recruit virtual assistants.
Well, they should, because right now, a lot of them have old school caps on saying, virtual assistants are not going to work for me. They've already made a decision before ever being experienced to them. They've made a decision that virtual assistants can't do their tasks accurately. They certainly won't do them on time. They've got problems with their English skills, issues with security, and all that sort of stuff. And that your recruitment process is just going to blow all of those objections out of the water.
Yeah. All right. Where do you want to start?
All right. So job ad goes up. What are the websites typically where these job ads go? And where are these ads going to get exposed to? What platforms do you send them to?
Okay, so there are online recruitment jobs in the Philippines. There's a number of them, but I don't find you get as great as exposure when you use those platforms. A lot of the people in the Philippines are on Facebook groups, like closed groups about online work, remote work, things like that. When we post a job, it goes up in front of somewhere between 1.2 and 1.5 million people.
That's a lot. And I know there's a lot of people. What's the population of the Philippines?
It's like 110 million. It's crazy.
Wow. And we have actually covered in earlier episodes of why the Philippines, because Michael, what are the countries that you've experienced to try and get what you've actually found all the ducks are in a row when you deal with the Philippines? Well, what's some of the other countries you've tried with in the past but don't do anymore?
We've tried most, we've gone through the Indian countries around India. We've gone through West Europe, East Europe, South America, North America. We've gone through so many different places, but Philippines, good time zone, majority university educated. English is number one spoken language in the country. They're just beautiful people.
Very, very westernized people. They're very westernized because of the United States influence, isn't it? And
Totally.
yeah, very westernized. So these are all the things that's why all the ducks and the ticks are there and the ducks are in a row, why we like the Philippines, particularly for Australia, New Zealand and the UK. And of course, if you do have the objection, will they virtual assistants work in my time zone? Absolutely. Any virtual assistant with Teams by Design work in the UK time zone if they have to, or the Australian or the New Zealand time zone. So that's not an issue whatsoever. They are working in your time zone. All right, moving on. So, okay, so we're putting that out there on recruitment websites and to social media groups, which you are very experienced with. I mean, some of the VA groups, Michael, that you've got access into to post ads. What are some of the sizes of some of those social media groups or Facebook groups? What are some of the sizes of them?
700,000-800,000.
Huge amounts
some
of
of them 400,000, 300,000, just crazy amounts.
This is stuff, of course, the average person wanting to employ in the Philippines just doesn't have access to. But of course, with Teams by Design, you've already got access to.
It's hard to navigate those Facebook groups too. I've spent a lot of time on them. I see what a lot of people are looking for, and you're looking for a diamond in the rough. So yeah, you've got groups that have got 500,000 people in there, and that sounds a lot. And you're trying to find one person, Darren. You're trying to find one good person to bring to the table. All right.
It is so true. I mean, let's just say, right from the start, let's say you've got 100 applications coming in, because we're going to talk about the inquiries and people applying now. But out of 100 applications, how many typically out of that would actually make it to be employed as a virtual assistant into one of the client offices? What's the selection rate like?
Out of 100 applications,
what's the percentage rate like?
It could be one application or two applications. It could be one or two. 100.
1 or 2%. That's cool. So let's just talk about the funnel, which is going from 100 applications to 1 or 2. We'll talk about which it is 11 different steps or filters or checkpoints or whatever you want to call it. But so they inquire and apply with a questionnaire. So there's actually a questionnaire. Let's run through the typical questions and the things that they need to answer and the things that they need to do in this particular stage, Michael. So let's talk about technology. What's the technology things that they need to do?
So there's got to be minimum standards, minimum requirements for tech and computers. So 2 screens minimum. I don't think you can do real estate with 1 screen. It's very difficult. I mean, I would have 40 tabs open at any one time. The minimum RAM requirements, so because you have got multiple tabs open, making sure you can actually go between them and do the work.
So the computer's got the processing power to do the work that's required.
It has to have that. It's got to have that power there, and that they have the minimum expectations. We help our team when they need to upgrade computers and so on. We do interest-free loans to make sure that they've got the equipment. Microphones, very important. So you need to have good basic working equipment.
But you've said that you don't want a good person missing out because there's a small issue not having the right tech. If you feel it's the right person, that you will give them a loan and sort out that sort of thing to bring them on board. But no, well done. So what about internet speed? What's your requirement around internet speed?
Well, some of them have got better internet speeds than me, and I've got like 100/40, you know, up and down. They have some of them have high power, like, you know, 1,000. It is just insane. They've got to have minimum internet speeds because, you know, we're handling VoIP calls, so understanding bandwidth, upload, download. Yes, there are in the Philippines some issues with ISP internet providers going down because of electricity is going down sometimes, which we generally know about. It's common that a lot of people in the Philippines have got 2 internet providers, Darren. So if one goes down, they've still got the other one, and they've also got their phone data. I say that just because sometimes that happens in the Philippines and people are aware of that. But, you know, making sure that there's a backup power generator and another provider means that you mitigate that as an issue. But yeah, the internet, I'm jealous of the internet speeds they get.
Yeah,
I'm NBN.
I can only wish, salivate over it. But, you know, our highest speeds here in Australia are probably pretty normal there. So certainly don't ever be concerned about internet speeds, people that are listening to this podcast. Now, all right, now what about workspace? What do you do around workspace? Because I know in the past, I've seen virtual assistants, you call them and you can hear in the background, or you hear as a motorbike zoom past and all of that. What's your take on that, particularly when you're dealing with virtual assistants who are working from home?
Well, I can typically tell where they live when I hear those noises. And, you know, it depends. Like, some people don't have the luxury of living in a built-up area, so they live in a province and there's a farming area there. There's a number of things that we would do in that instance. Either one, not have that person take phone calls with clients, like, you know, tenants and tradies. The other solution is we have access to noise cancelling software that runs through the computer, and that gets rid of any of the background noise. But we listen to that and we make a risk assessment whether we want to take that on, and what do we do to mitigate the noise.
All right, well, let's, and of course with Zoom, really easy these days, guys. Even before, you might have the virtual assistant with their background. We got kids walking past or stuff like that. Of course, now, Michael, there's a very strict rules around that. What's some of the strict rules that you've got with VAs and their video backgrounds?
Well, I mean, most of our team now have got like either TBD in their background
or the blur. Like, if you're watching this video, we've got the blur on, and it's just a non-issue now. So, but with people's working environments, you actually ask for a photo as well, don't you, Michael?
So we ask for photos of the desk. We want to see what's around them. We want to see, you know, it doesn't work for us if their computer is located in the kitchen and they have a family there that's kind of running around making noises. So we look for clean, quiet workspaces. At the end of the day, Darren, the people that we recruit, they're all professional. A lot of the people that we've recruited have come from working in an office at a good level of a good position of where they've been at, and they know how to be professional. Like, they know. It's not like you're meeting someone that working in a professional environment is a first time role for them. They understand.
The professionalism that I've seen, particularly, you know, with the people that are working for us, their professional polish is 10 times better than you see in offices here in Australia. Their politeness and their professionalism is pristine.
Yeah, and a lot of them are connected heavily to faith too, and they just they know that I've got to turn up at this time. I've got church on Saturdays and Sundays, and this is what I'm doing. And you get 100% of them, 100% of their time. Like, when they turn up, you've got them. They're there and they're committed.
And work ethic is just unquestionable. Very strong work ethic. So, you know, people are, what can I say? And some people might get upset. I've been working with virtual assistants from the Philippines since 2007. I would shudder to think of doing anything different because it works so well. There is no better alternative that I've ever seen. Anyway, let's move on. So, okay, now we've talked about technology stuff as what their inquiry, but there are other questions also around the disc profile, and there's an attention to detail test as well. Michael, tell us about that.
So we do the disc profile so we can see how, people are, their strengths, that only tells us a small thing about the individual. We also do a Clifton strength profile test, which tells us, are they leaders, followers? It's one thing with a disc profile telling us, how you would be in a certain situation. But having the Clifton strength tells us exactly the strengths that you would bring to that. So if you were a high I or something in a disc profile, but you're a strong leader, we have to kind of say, well, in certain situation, this is when you will lead, this is when you'll stand up. Some people are empathizers, some people are followers, so we have a look at what's that person, what's their characteristic like, what type of role would they be best suited towards. They're non-negotiables, Darren. Like, they're non-negotiables. We have to know, so we know the personality that we're dealing with. One of the catch-all, we always have like an attention to detail question, and it could be, what color is your favorite unicorn? Or, if you bought a car, what would it be now? And then we also ask other questions. So once you finish this, make sure you find me on Facebook Messenger and let me know, like, the last book you read, the last movie you watched, your favorite meal, right? And because, Darren, we could get a lot of applications on certain job posts, like a lot. But what's important for us is, what's their attention to detail like? Can they follow instructions? Do they read everything? And there's a lot of questions on our questionnaire, Darren. Like, people may look at that and go, is it too much, too hard? I'm not going to finish it. And that's fine. We don't want those people, but we want people that are going to be following attention to detail and following instructions. So if they've followed the instruction, they've like found my Facebook Messenger or whichever messenger I've directed them to, then they'll potentially qualify for an interview with our head of HR.
Could I just say that I do see the teams by design, Messenger gets very busy, and I because I'm also connected to the business, I do see messages come through. And I saw one pop up on Saturday where they are responding to that attention to detail instruction test, and they were rattling off their books with Spider-Man and then the New Testament and then something else. And it's just, they were answering your questions, and they were simply passing your test. But Michael, very quickly, how many people get knocked out at this stage? Because putting people through an instructions test, looking at their attention to detail, a lot of people cannot follow simple instructions. So how many people are knocked out at this stage?
Look, it's a majority of people get knocked out at this stage. That's just the reality of it. We're looking for particular people to fill certain roles. And once I get to this point, then, Charmaine, our head of HR, she'll do like a group interview with those that are qualifying. We do that so that we can see how they'll interact in a group setting, because we're a team, right? We don't want people to be trying to compete with each other in that interview, because they don't realize, Darren, I'm happy to hire everyone in that group interview. Right? Happy to hire them. If they're all great, I will hire them. We will sign agreements with them.
Well, let's just keep on going here, Michael, because so we talked about the inquiry and application stage with the questionnaire, and we just went through the technology and the disc profiling. By the way, everyone, if you want to get the disc profile, just go to tonyrobbins.com. He actually bought the online version, so go to tonyrobbins.com. He's a name that everyone knows, and you can go through the disc profile if you haven't actually profiled yourself. It gives you really good insight about your strengths and weaknesses and what person is suitable for a property management type role as opposed to a person who's not suitable. The disc profile will help sort that out. But the next stage number 3 is the group interview, where you're getting the HR manager, who's Charmaine, she's getting involved at that. And so you're putting them into a group interview, I'm assuming on Zoom, What are you looking for? What's this stage going to achieve, Michael?
I want to see how people communicate with each other. It's a non-threatening environment. We ask people to say a bit more about themselves, what they've been doing, so that we can get a greater understanding. Where we're seeing how they interact with each other. What I find is in group environments, people typically think that they're competing for one role. And so sometimes there are people that are really dominant and stand out. And then there are some people that are really kind of quite passive and they sit back. So we're looking for their mannerisms. We're seeing what they do, their process. And then from that, we'll determine who's going to come back for a one-on-one.
Yeah. Okay. So once we're in that one-on-one, and that's you and HR manager Charmaine. So what are you looking for in that stage? What's this step going to achieve?
The one-on-one, like I get involved in the one-on-one where I get to meet each individual person that's qualified and like listen to how they engage and interact. And like when a lot of people go to meet me, Darren, for some reason they get nervous. And so which is good because I want to see how they engage when they're nervous, like if their thought process, how
they think you look like Thor from Marvel. I mean, why would they get nervous?
They do. I do think I have no idea why people think I look like Thor, but I'll take it.
We think you look like Tintin. So.
Well, it's better than looking like Mr. Bean.
That's what Dennis gets. Dennis gets Mr. Bean from them. The Filipinos, everyone, you can rib Dennis on this one, all right? The Filipinos, when we go there, they think he looks like Mr. Bean.
Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised he doesn't use that to get into restaurants.
So everyone out there, get on the messenger if you know Dennis and just rib him on that one, all right? Mr. Bean, all right? And we'll keep that secret to ourselves. Well, not really secret when it's public on a podcast. But anyway, all right. So, Michael, at this point, you're happy with the one-on-one. You employ them from this point. Now, whether there is a position for them to go to or not, why do you do that? I mean, that's an investment.
If they're good, Darren, I want them.
Because they're only going to go somewhere else and work somewhere else. You might as well grab them and park them, right? To really be used for a client that's coming along.
So we start putting them through training right away. So in that instance, we'll start putting them through our training right away, right? So we park them, they're there, they'll go through the training, they're doing something, they might even start ghosting with other team members who are doing clients, right? So they start becoming familiar and there's always training that they can be doing. And because it's so important to have a mixture of recruits, Darren, because not everyone is going to get on with everybody. So like you may not, I might introduce you to a couple of people, but you may not resonate with two of the three. Right. So I have to know that, okay, of those three, I've got them locked away. They're part of the team. Mm. Now, sometimes when we're overloaded with recruitment, we don't have the opportunity to recruit, to employ them straight away because we need to go through the process, do the one-on-one, and then say, great, I've got you meeting Darren in the next 10 minutes. Darren, what do you think? Yes, I like that person. Great. Let's sign them up.
So now at this point, they're employed, you're putting them in front of clients. And so if you are a person that wants to put a virtual assistant on board and you, of course, talk to Michael, of course, reach out to Michael at teamsbydesign.com. But when Michael, what's the deal here? So clients get to meet these people who have been employed and it's by Zoom. So you as a potential client can actually meet this person who's going to be working with you and your team. You're going to be speaking to them, talking to them, seeing how they interact with a proper interview on Zoom. What's some of the rules you have around that, Michael, when they're being interviewed?
I think it's really important as part of the process that you have involvement. So the client has involvement in recruiting the team member because it is a personality. Will that person get on with that with their assistant? Unlike other places that would just say, Darren, here you go. I've got here, she's a virtual assistant. This is who you've got to work with. Right. And it may not always be the best outcome there. But at this point of the interview process with the client, they get to ask certain questions. What have you been doing? What's your previous role? The client can then also go into more detail. This is the role that I have. This is the company that we've got. This is our current setup and structure. this is what we're hoping to achieve from having an assistant join us, so that everyone is on the same page. And it's not only is it an interview from, I guess, the client to the virtual assistant, it's also from the virtual assistant to the client. Can I work with this person? Right. By doing that, the results of retention are quite high because there's been that collaboration. It's an important buy-in part of the process.
Yeah, no, that's good. All right, so the client who's wanting a virtual assistant on board has now met with that person on Zoom, ticks all the boxes. And Michael, you talked about that when they're interviewing, that person will be available for the client to choose for a 24-hour period. But if that client doesn't make a decision on that person that they've interviewed within the 24 hours, what happens to that person?
Yeah, so we've got to be fair to the client who's met the assistant, to give them some time to think over which assistant they want to work with. But at the same time, we have to be mindful that we don't want the assistant to miss out on a good client to work with either. So we give 24-hour time for the client to decide on who they want to work with, of the 2, 3, or 4 people that we introduce them to. But they are booked in to meet with somebody else 24 hours after that.
Yeah. So 24-hour rule, I think that's fair for everybody. I'm sure you'll agree. And because we've got good people now, these are good people that we don't want to mess around. We've not only got a duty to prospective clients, but we absolutely have a duty to our people in our virtual assistants in the Philippines.
When you think about it, though, Darren, our team, we've got quality assurance, we've got human resources who are interviewing and going through. So by the time you're interviewing them yourself, Darren, it's not like they've just been plucked out of somewhere. They've gone through a huge chain just to get there.
Yeah, and it is. It's a big process. Moving on with the process, step 6 is the learning process. And now they've been employed, there is a training process where we're going to be inducting them to property management. So this is where Teams by Design are different from a lot of big VA companies out there. We are property management. So we have a lot of property management training resources that these people are now going to be exposed to. So Michael, one of these training resources is they're going to get access to the IGT exclusive membership platform, where I've got over probably 30 hours of nuts and bolts training with time management, communication, conflict, topical stuff with inspections, or, all those sort of things. Is all this nuts and bolts training that we train ordinary property managers with. What's that expectation there that you're pushing people into that? What happens there?
So there's a good 7 to 10 days of full on learning that the assistant has to do before they start. That's IGT training. There's other property management training they've got to do. There's language and slang and pronunciation, not for them to speak, Australian English or New Zealand English, but so they can understand some of the vernacular, the wording. There are Udemy courses. There's listening to call examples of what some of the team have done. There are, Darren, there's so much training and onboarding that we throw into the team. It doesn't just stop after that 7 to 10 days, Darren. There's a minimum requirement of what they have to do within that time frame. My expectation is that every one of our team members is always doing professional development throughout their life cycle with us.
And I'm meeting with the Teams by Design team now every 2 weeks with time management training or priority management training for our managers. I'm teaching them the effective art of delegation. So yeah, Teams by Design people are always getting training. Let's just get back to the learning process. And you did a 1-day event in Manila together with Dennis, where you got 30, 40, 50 people in a room, people that wanted to become virtual assistants. And you did a number of sessions. It was like a workshop through the day. There was things like slang words, understand how Australians in real estate speak, New Zealanders speak, understanding the slang words in our language, understanding property management culture, understanding processes, what's leasing, lease renewals, late rent, all those sorts of things. You video recorded that whole day. So you're exposing them to that whole day training as well, right?
Yeah, correct. So they have to watch the boot camp, which we did, which was a great day. And I think we've mentioned the idea of the boot camp is to find the diamonds in the rough, like find the people that work really well, stand out in team environment, because they're leaders. Like they are just leaders. I mean, in fact, Bev, Devley, who works with you.
So if you get in contact with Inspired Grow Training by email or whatever, you might even get a call. But Beverly is our executive assistant that does such a good job for us. Keeps me organized, keeps my diary organized. She does all my emails, all this stuff. You found her. She came along to the event. She was that diamond, wasn't she? That you quickly picked up. I wouldn't say she was in the rough. She was that diamond that you saw in the room.
And because the borders are open again, Darren, that means that we can go back to the Philippines and we can meet people more often and do events like that rather than doing everything online on Zoom, right? It's because you just get to see the passion in everyone.
Yeah. All right, let's keep on moving on. Step 7 is setting up the communication platform. So you've got apps that get set up. You set up the phone lines. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So we have to set up communication between the client and us. So, generally we use Slack, but we have clients who use Teams, MS Teams. At the same time too, we set up local phone numbers, because we're making and receiving phone calls for our clients. And that part of the process is, they'll also meet with the QA, with our QA, head of QA, and listen to a lot of calls and do role play. Right, listen to what works, what we expect, because we, hundreds of thousands of phone calls there, and we know what calls are like across so many countries. And our team, they're not surprised when they make these phone calls because they've had training around it.
No, that's cool. All right, so once that's been set up, now that this person that's been employed, that's done the learning, the communication platforms have been set up, the bridge between the virtual assistant and the client working remotely, all those platforms have been set up. Now they're meeting with Teams by Design, have a quality assurance officer. Let's talk about that. And what is that quality assurance person going to be doing, or quality assurance manager? What are they going to be doing and going through with a person that's about to start work?
Yeah, so we want to make sure there's a professional level, right? We want to make sure that we've got someone dedicated on our team that ensures the highest quality of standards for each team member when they're making phone calls, taking phone calls, making sure the phone lines are set up as required, as needed. And so we have got full-time QA. They listen to every single phone call, Darren, that we make and receive. Like every call gets graded. We listen for things like, were they empathetic, sympathetic? Did they resolve the question? What could they have done differently on that phone call? And it goes into a matrix where the team gets scored and graded every month, every quarter. There's rewards around quality of phone calls. And there's something like 10 or 12 different points that QA look for in each phone call. Like it is just, it's next level, right? It's next level. And things like too, which for me is important, something like a missed call register. Agencies don't often realize how many calls get dropped when people call through to the office, but we see every single call that comes through. Well, the QA sees every missed call and sends a report to everyone saying, hey, these are the calls that have been missed so far today. Make sure you call them back. A missed call could be, Darren, someone rings for like a split second and doesn't continue. They might call and be hit with, please hold, we're just on the call at the moment, or whatever the reason. We see that number and the team call them back. So having someone that monitors and tracks all the ins and outs of the phone lines and the quality of them is just something that a normal office couldn't actually facilitate.
Absolutely. I'm blown away that you do have that QA person that goes through that deep to make sure the quality is pristine, which is really important. So moving on, step 9 is onboarding with the client. So there's going to be some tasks now that need to be listed from the real estate office. It's going to be working with the virtual assistant. What happens there?
So whilst we're doing our onboarding and our training of our team member, we get the office, the agency, to start recording, like on Loom video or Zoom, their tasks that they want done. Now, yes, real estate tasks are fundamentally the same across numerous different countries, but how you do them, how the agency does them, sometimes they're different, where the files are saved, how the files should be saved. how the information generally comes into the company. These are things that we don't know from the start. So we get the agency to do their part by doing some screen recordings. We can then also use that as part of building up a manual library for anyone else that starts with them. We can put on YouTube as a private playlist. And that just means when the team member starts, they've got a list of tasks that they're starting with. It could be lease renewals, it could be maintenance, it could be handling the phone inquiries for the new inquiries, number of things. But if there are 10 tasks we're going to be doing, we'll say, let's start with these ones, do some video recordings around that, and let's get that bedded down.
Okay. All right. Well, now our team member has gone live. They've started their first day, and our head supervisor, in this case, will be Ia. What's her involvement to helping them? Because there's going to be a break-in period. There's going to be a time where they're going to need to be, heavily supervised compared to other times. Let's talk about that initial stage of them starting.
Yeah, so there's probably that grace period of about 2 to 6 weeks, depending on the tasks that are being done, where the unfamiliar have to become familiar. Basically runs everything. There's not many tasks that she hasn't done herself, so she's the most ideal person to help hold the client's hand, help the VA's hand along the way, along that process, so that they, if there are any questions or they are struggling. Bear in mind, Darren, too, though, we have software that tracks what's happening on the computers, so we can see if the assistant is frozen. We can see if they're not sure. If there's computer use, well, no computer use, we get alerted to that. And it could be that the person doesn't understand the task, or they don't know what else there is to do, whatever the reason. So Ia can see that, our QA can see that, and we can say, hey, Darren, I can see you've been inactive for an hour and a half. Where are you stuck? How can we help? Or, which part of the process do you need help with? So, so no one's ever blindly in the process. We're there to hold hands. In fact, Ia, our whole team could hold the hand of the client the entire time. That's why we're here. That's why we have a team. It's a team, and it's bespoke. So it's teams by design.
Okay, well, let's just talk about our last step now in the process of onboarding and bringing this person on board. Ia's role as head supervisor is touching base with the client to make sure that, to be aware of any bumps in the road that are occurring and things like that, to iron them out. What expectation, if people do use a Teams by Design virtual assistant, what sort of role will they be able to expect from a person like Ia?
Again, is it a hold their hand to kind of make sure they're comfortable with the process? We'd rather the process be perfect and get it to a point where it's autonomous, right? And so we know that we need to adjust the needle so we're all pointing true north, and we can't do that with silence. So Ia is there to kind of make sure and check in with the agency. Hey, how's everything going? Do you need any help with this? Have you tried this? Let's do this. And then I'm also there, Darren, from a strategic level. So I think people, it's important that people should know that, yes, you get access to the entire team. There is that entire process. And, realizing that I'm there, I've been through everything that each agency is going through. In fact, Darren, there's probably nothing that an agency can't throw at me that I don't know, or that I couldn't think up a solution for, or that I couldn't help execute a task or a plan.
Yeah, I agree.
So whilst we have everything methodical in there, then there's me. What number were we at? 11?
Well, we just finished. That's the final one, number 11. So 11 points, and you're right. You can talk to Michael at any time. And in fact, of course, get in contact with Michael now. This is something that you think is going to work. You've seen how methodical and how thorough this process is, how careful Michael is to place a person into your business where you are managing hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of dollars of other people's assets. This process is taken very seriously. Get in contact with Michael. Just go to teamsbydesign.com. Also, make sure you get the list of up to 30 different tasks that you can easily outsource using a virtual assistant to be helping you. Go to teamsbydesign.com. Michael, another really good podcast there. Very thorough. I like it. Lots of nuts and bolts, lots of meat. People can see that not only are you a virtual assistant company, we are property management. And that's why we want to work with property management businesses over Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom. And Michael, you do it very, very well. So a big thank you to you and big thank you to everyone. And we'll see you in the next podcast.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.